Planning board to order. If everyone would please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Walking around.
It's a moving target. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job on your.
I realized they were staring
Yeah, really.
First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, May 16, 2024, September 19, 2024, November 21st, 2024, and June 5th, 2025, and those minutes will be deferred to a future date when we have them in front of us to review. Next item on the agenda is the possible extension or abandonment of applications pursuant to town code. First one being RVH Mulch Supply LLC. And we have a letter here from Lankin Tully Engineering dated May 21st, 2025, addressed to the Chairman and Planning Board. You may recall that on December 21st, 2023, the Planning Board granted conditional amended site plan approval to expand the mulch operation from 6.3 acres to 7.7 acres. This approval was extended on June 20th, 2024, and again on December 19th, 2024, which extended the approval out to June 19, 2025. Over the past few months, we've been preparing the stormwater pollution prevention plan and coordinating with the applicant to provide the requested information related to the well usage and the water quality testing. Although we anticipate having the SWIP and the water testing complete within the next few weeks, it will take beyond the June 19, 2024 expiration date. Therefore, on behalf of the applicant, we respectfully request that the project be placed on the June 5th, 2025 Planning Board agenda for an additional 6-month extension of the project's conditional site plan approval. If you have any questions, would like myself or the applicant to attend the meeting, or should you require any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your consideration. Dave Higgins from Lankin Tully Engineering. Sean.
The only thing I have to add, Mr. Chairman, is that this would be if you granted the final extension for this application.
Comments from the board?
Is the extension 90 days or 180?
It's 6 months, so it brings it to December 18th.
Other comments from the board, questions?
I'm sure we should make sure that they're the same as the last one.
Yes.
Yeah, Kelly will write an email in this case, but yeah, I usually do.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, can I have a motion then to extend the conditional amended site plan approval to December 18, 2025?
I'll make it.
Neil, second by? Seamus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Next item is 69 Celery Avenue, formerly known as SM Sales. Sean.
So, Mr. Chairman, the board approved this back in December. In February, they had submitted a plan for your signature. I reviewed that plan and issued a letter. I had thought that the plan was signed. When I followed up this week with the building department, it was determined that it has not been signed. I spoke with the applicant's engineer, and they're unsure why it hasn't been signed, but they will follow up. So they had verbally asked me before the meeting tonight if you board would consider an extension. It's up to you how long you want to consider that. If you go 1 month would be probably the shortest, or you can go out to 6 months.
Questions or comments from the board?
I don't have a problem with the 6-month extension. My only concern with that is we're gonna have to charge it.
I'm sorry, I
We
didn't
have to charge it for 6 months. There's a fee for that, right?
not on site plan, there's a fee for residential subdivision extensions.
Did somebody say formally resent?
Yeah.
So what will they be now? They're not resent since.
69 sellers.
Are they gonna do the same exact thing as they were planning when they came before us the first place?
Yeah, it's just how they fill out the application. So when you fill out the application, there's a project title. For consistency between the building department and consultants, we try to use the title that they provide. I listed it on the agenda as formerly known as because this is what this board formerly knew it as. It's the same applicant, nothing has changed.
Nothing's
They
changed.
Scope is the same.
They just changed the title of the drawings and the title of the
Okay, I
application.
just wanna make sure that nothing is gonna change with anything.
No, I don't think so.
If that's the case, then I'm all right with it.
Okay. Kelly,
6 months would be December 18th.
could I have said motion?
I'll do a motion.
Diana, second by?
I'll second.
Jim, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? And the third one we have here is from Marte Holding Group LLC, letter from MJS Engineering and Land Surveying dated June 12, 2025, addressed to the Chairman and Planning Board regarding the project just mentioned. Respectfully request an extension of the resolution of conditional approval for the above-mentioned project. Please know we have been working diligently on the plans and specifications as requested in the resolution. We have applied for the driveway entrance permit to access the site and construct the culvert across the roadside ditch. The drive will be constructed for access so we can do the soil testing with the Orange County Department of Health. We have also applied to the Orange County Department of Health and are under review at this time. Thank you in advance for your time and attention to this matter. If you have any questions or comments, please contact the undersigned. Very truly yours, Juan De Jesus of MJS Engineering and Land Surveying. Sean,
I don't have any further, but Mr. Cleverly is in the audience. I don't know if he has anything to add.
did you have anything you wanted to add to this request, Brad?
No, Juan really stated everything that needs to be said in that letter.
Okay. Comments from the board? Tony?
December 18th.
Original.
They all happen to be the same tonight.
At least we know what we're doing now.
We're taking the night off. Okay, so for the resolution of conditional approval extension to December 18th, 2025, do I have said motion? Okay, we have Eric, second by Seamus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 17M. It's a continuance of public hearing for the Flex Building, 12-2-43. Application for a site plan and special permit approval for a warehouse and office on 8.9 plus or minus acres along New York State Route 17M and Cannon Hill Drive in I-zone, AQ3 floodplain ponding and stream corridor and water supply watershed overlays. First off, do we have anyone from the public for this public hearing? Okay. Introduce yourself and.
Good evening, my name is Joe Fowl with Peter Zack and Fowl. I'm representing this application. I have Saul Eckstein here as the applicant owner. Just to give you a little background, this is a continuation of a public hearing. We held a public hearing in August. I think we had one additional in September. And at that time, the planning board had asked us to get to reach out to the DOT with regards to two items actually, the proposed berm that we have on site and also the potential for a westbound left turn lane on New York State Route 17M. And this was to be in line with the negative declaration that was issued by this board. We had sent out an initial request and the DOT had no issue with the berm as long as it was not in their right of way, which it is not. But they did ask for a traffic impact study to be performed. We hired Creighton Manning to do that study, and as we suspected, they said that there was a left turn lane, was westbound, was warranted, and just to give it also a little more background on that study, the trip generation for the project measured all of the trip generations for everything that's coming out of Cannon Hill Drive, and it's estimated that this new project is a 7% increase in the AM and a 13% increase in the PM, based on current traffic counts. So that being said, those were the two issues that the planning board wanted some correspondence back from the DOT on, and we were hoping, based on that we could close the public hearing and move on with finalizing the technical review from Sean. We did get a letter, I think back in July, comment letter we responded to, but we have not submitted that report or our SWIP because we are in the middle of a public hearing, so that information is being held until we do close the public hearing. And that's pretty much where we stand right now.
The correspondence from the DOT, did we get that in writing?
It was an email. This, matter of fact, I sent it to Sean. It
Yeah,
just
Mr.
come in.
Chairman, I requested it today. If you'd like, it's very brief. I can read it to the board.
Please.
Okay. So it's addressed to Mr. Petrazak and others, including Mr. Fowl from the DOT. It's dated May 27th. Thank you for your patience. If you could please address the following. First bullet. For the plan set, could you please add a call out that the proposed 5-foot wide asphalt bike path has a minimum of a 1-foot offset from the New York State DOT right of way. Second bullet. Current and future traffic for Cannon Hill Drive does meet the AASHTO guidance for a left turn lane. Additionally, there has been accidents at this location due to people waiting to make the left turn into the site. As such, New York State DOT asked that a left turn lane be designed for this roadway. For this left turn lane, should property need to be donated to New York State DOT, please reach out to New York State DOT Real Estate at 845-437-3360 to begin that process as soon as possible. Additionally, any work within the New York State DOT right-of-way will require a New York State DOT highway work permit. Please see the attached.
Now, they're asking for the design of the left turn lane?
Yeah.
Is that something that needs to be done now?
I don't know where you
What
left
is
off
the-
with that because it is somewhat open-ended.
Well, I guess it is a little open-ended. We do not need a permit for this project. What they want the design done. And what we've agreed to is to do a conceptual design with Creighton Manning to verify that there's no taking required. We don't believe there are, but that was one of the DOT requirements, just to make sure that there's no property takings along with that. And that is something that we've agreed to take care of. We have no intention of going for an actual permit for the project.
So was that ultimately, would that be a condition of an approval as far as memorializing that requirement?
Yeah, it would definitely be in a resolution to get it in writing. The board's gonna have to discuss when that trigger would be for that resolution condition to be completed. John Canning, your traffic consultant, has not seen this, the impact study was prepared for the DOT. He hasn't seen this either. I wanted to discuss with you this evening what the applicant had to say, and see if you wanted me to send this to John Canning for review and recommendations. But it is ultimately up to the DOT, it's their intersection.
Right.
Who pays for the extension to actually build the lane or paint the lane or whatever they're gonna do with it?
Ultimately, I think what would happen if it follows other applications, and the town board just considered this at their last meeting, it would be a development agreement
Proportionate.
for a proportionate share of the applicant's impact. So for example, if it's 7% and it costs, $1 million to make the improvement, they would pay 7% of $1 million.
Now, the existing tenants along the roadway, they're responsible for portions of it.
It would be future tenants, not tenants, but future applicants.
Which are not the ones that are already on,
No.
oh, say, because it wasn't required until this next one
And
was.
they hadn't changed the warrants. I don't know when they had done that, but John has gone over that with you. The new left turn lane warrant is very easy to meet.
To meet.
But that was not the warrant several years ago. Probably all the applicants there did not meet that warrant.
That's what I was asking, the burden doesn't get put on them, because we have a new applicant that triggered the threshold. Okay.
There's no mechanism for that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Comments from the board?
Just with respect to the meeting, the warrant for the left turn lane, I was getting the sense that even without considering some of the other projects that are currently pending and before us, that would have likely been met,
Yes, yeah, I think you heard from John Canning, in connection with a nearby application that warrant was met. Again, they lowered the standard for the warrant, so that may have something to do with it.
got it. I don't know if it's a discussion to have, but if this would be required for this applicant, whether there were other projects or not, I don't know why we would do fair share income situation.
But I don't wanna put words in the applicant's mouth, but I think the argument would be, well, if it's already needed and we're not even there, then why should we have to pay for the whole thing?
And that's what the study shows. It's required as it is right now.
John Canning might be able to weigh in on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we really need to do that, because I sat through the meeting with the town board on the other one, and questioning whether this is part of that whole thing. It would be just a small percentage of that whole project that we were talking about the other night. With RDM, it would happen to be RDM, the one that's been approved already.
2602.
Right, so that was, their fair share was pretty close to 100,000. I think it was 90,000.
90,000, yes.
Yeah, so, but that was for the whole stretch of 17M, as opposed to just this little part. So I don't know whether this little part is part of that,
It's
or.
not exactly accurate. I don't have the data because John Canning did that analysis, but my recollection was it was 4 discrete intersections beyond what they were required to do for the DOT permit, which I think they said that meeting was $900,000 worth of improvements at their project site.
But I think it also had to do with the extra lanes there too.
It did have to do with the extra lane, that was part of the 900,000 that they're gonna do, but there were 4 other intersections that they had to study that they did not have a significant impact on. This may have been one of them.
I would be all, John, look at the first.
I will send it to him tomorrow.
Other comments? Good, Dory.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, it's a public hearing.
Could I have a motion to open the public hearing? Okay,
Second.
Seamus, second by Giovanni, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is open and continuance of the public hearing from August and September. What I would ask you to do for the record is introduce your name and your property address and state your concerns or comments, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Chris Healy. I'm a resident of the town of Goshen, Howard Court. I've spoken on this application before. We have spoken about the nature of this particular intersection, 17M and Cannon Hill Drive. It is treacherous to say the least, and that's not the fault of the applicant at all. But last time we spoke, we were talking about not the westbound lane, but coming in eastbound. Vehicles coming in onto, making the right-hand turn now, coming onto Cannon Hill Drive would have to cross over into the oncoming traffic coming out of Cannon Hill Drive onto 17M. New Jersey truck and trailers back there, a school bus, and especially that time of the morning, that was going to be a problem. Closing the public hearing before, have we settled that issue? Is that been, have we figured out how we're gonna deal with that?
Mr. Chairman, can I address that for the?
Please.
I think the way that would get addressed is in the applicant, is in the DOT requested conceptual design, right? If the applicant runs a turning analysis through there and it indicates that there's vehicles that need to cross over,
Swing wide.
then the DOT may need the applicant to widen that intersection, and there may be some taking for wide. So I think that's absolutely on the DOT's radar, and I think that they've asked the applicant to study it.
And we did provide turning analysis for a bunch of movements, truck movements in and out of Cannon Hill Drive.
Not just internally.
Yeah, and if you want those to submit to the contract consultant,
I assume the board wants that?
Absolutely.
because that was requested in their initial.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is no reflection upon the applicant. It's not the applicant's fault. It's one of the busiest roads in Orange County, and it's considerably smaller than it needs to be with all of the development that we have now, and we are planning in the very near future. I think closing the public hearing is a bit premature until some of those answers are in place. Myself and my fellow residents that live in and around that area and use that road frequently, we'd really like to see that that's going to be taken care of. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others, any other comments, concerns?
I mean, I don't know what it's worth, but I agree with you.
Everything's worth something.
My name's Marie Hartman, I live on Gates Schoolhouse Road, and it's treacherous. I can't imagine putting in more things with even like a traffic light. There's accidents there all the time. If you go on the Goshen site, there was a big truck rollover. You have to pull back almost like 4 cars to let them get in and out. It is just, you need to relook at that and make sure that that is addressed. Nothing on you. There's nothing to do with it.
Thanks,
It's just
Maria.
it's just a bad intersection. And if you're there anytime from like 4 to 6, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And the people trying to get out of that cannon, they're screwed. And so it makes them a little bit more jumpy. And when you have to cross the first lane to get into the second one, he's right.
At least they know where you live.
Thank you.
I'm looking out for you.
Thanks.
Other comments or concerns? Wendy.
Wendy Morrell from Laurel Circle, Goshen. When was this traffic study conducted?
2 months ago.
2 months
It was
ago?
completed about a month ago. It started in November. November with the counts and, just finish up.
Yeah, because there's been significant changes in 17M. I mean, I don't know.
No, it was just on this year, yeah.
Okay, it's pretty heavy. And it's gonna be, I mean, treacherous in a couple of months and years to come. So, yeah, I would really reconsider this one. Or just keep it in mind, please.
Thank you. Other comments, concerns? Frank, do you have any?
No, but thank you.
Sean, anything else? Yeah.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Kelly?
Nothing further.
All, as far as,
Up to the board if you'd like to close or keep it open.
Can I just make a comment?
Absolutely.
I understand the concerns, and the DOT has the same concerns, and we're working through the DOT and most likely with the town traffic consultant regarding this. Keeping the public hearing open, we're not allowed, we can't move forward with the rest of our issues, with, the SWIP review, any of other Sean's technical review comments and any other information that we, would like to continue supplying to the board, and we'd like to, move it forward, and that we separately request to close the public hearing, fully knowing that the issue's not going away, it has to be, dealt with to your
I
satisfaction.
happen to agree with you. I mean, the intention of the public hearing is to hear public comments and concerns, right? We've done that. I think we know the issues. If we keep it open until every issue is resolved, we never close the public hearing, right? So I think I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
I would like to give, I have no problem closing the public hearing if the public has the ability to comment on the proposal in the future. I'm not sure how we can do that otherwise, but I think this is such a significant issue, and I think the public should be able to make a comment about that. We're not keeping open for the
If they
SWIP
did, they
area.
should have
the
been here.
public's had 3 opportunities.
But they haven't seen any of the plans for the intersection, if there is gonna be a plan for the intersection. That's the only comment I want them to be able to talk
The
about.
the plan for the intersection
Is offsite.
is off-site, and if I'm not mistaken, if I understood right, it's only a conceptual, it's not like it's being built now. So it's not gonna change the traffic flows at this point. So if the public saw that there's a proposed design, I'm not sure that that would,
Not only that, it's not even gonna change anything.
well, you can't,
Percentages.
you didn't give your name.
Or your address, I'm sorry.
Or your address. No, but it's not gonna change, I mean, they're gonna see something, we're talking about something needing to be done. We know something needs to be done. How it's designed, the public's not gonna look at it and say, well, is that radius right or is that radius wrong? The idea is that there's going to be a plan, at least in place, to address it.
And if the
it's
design
not,
significantly changes the layout, you guys.
Then
can
we're,
hold
it's gonna
another
be
public
back, it's
hearing.
gonna be back to us again, because the site plan changes. Diana, what do you think?
I think we should probably close the public hearing, but there are so many other applicants that are coming before us on 17M. This issue is gonna be readdressed over and over and over again anyway. And to hold him, if he knows he has to make a left-hand lane at this time, and he's agreeing to that.
Well, the design for it.
Well, the design for it. It shouldn't hold up his process because of the road. When the road is a major issue and needs to be taken care of differently. And I don't know if it's our responsibility or town board's responsibility. Somebody has to address 17M because as you stated, it's treacherous from 4 to 6, but I was coming home at 3:30 or 2:30 the other day and it was forget it.
Yeah.
So it's all day long, that road is a mess. And with everything coming out of Cannon Hill anyway, it probably should be looked at even differently, perhaps a traffic light or something. But I don't think the whole applicant should be held up because of that corner.
Yeah, I don't think the DOT, if I remember, didn't want a traffic light on that intersection. They made it clear they didn't want another one there. Seamus?
We've had 3 shots at the public hearing, and everybody wanted to speak, they should have been speaking by now, so I think let the SWIP go forward and let that plan proceed, we should be able to close the public hearing.
Neil?
I'm still okay.
Okay. On this side.
what happens, I'm sorry, so you're gonna come up with design, right? The DOT has to review it, right? Then the DOT has to decide when to do it, if they're gonna do it, money's already been taken in, right? And then they have to coordinate it and get it installed, right?
I'm gonna let Mr. Fowl correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think DOT is asking for is, there's an applicant on the corner, right? And there is an improvement needed at that intersection. Regardless of who funds that improvement, the DOT is worried about, is this applicant, what they're gonna build right now, is their property necessary for improvements at that intersection? So they wanna see if there's any land taking necessary for those improvements, and it could impact this applicant. Is that your understanding?
That's correct, yes.
So, I don't think what Mr. Fowl designs is going to be the ultimate solution of this intersection, maybe DOT reviews it, but I think it may be utilized to make a determination on DOT's part of how impactful and how wide that area needs to be.
But my point is that the DOT controls all that.
Absolutely.
So I don't think there's any reason to hold up this project to wait for no public hearing after they've had three chances. So I would second your motion.
If after the design is done, project gets approved, it gets built, and there's accidents at that intersection for any reason, on 17M coming in, coming out, at that point, can the DOT require that intersection be upgraded if they're not going to spend the money to do it?
Can they require this applicant upgraded?
Well, they're only paying a proportion, they're only paying 7% or 13% or whatever. Somebody's got to pay the other 93 or 87%. You know, if we're not charging existing, property, tenants, whatever, you know, properties, and you're only waiting for someone maybe to sell or redevelop a lot, that could be years, maybe never.
The issue is, that anybody on Cannon Hill Road likely does not need a DOT permit for what they're gonna do. So, without that stick, the DOT really can only go after people on 17 main line who have any driveway permits or things of that nature. So, what that's, I think what Mr. Fowl said at the top of his comments, that he doesn't need a permit from DOT.
So the DOT would have to fund it by the state, the state would have to fund it.
Oh, they would, okay, so there is a
If they want
mechanism in
it.
place.
Oh, absolutely.
They want it.
Okay, that's what I was
They have to
asking,
build it.
it wouldn't suddenly fall on
No.
Mr. Eckstein to,
No.
somebody build a whole
No.
interchange, okay.
So if they fund it, right, if someone goes comes along in 17, do they have the right to take funds for that after they already funded?
No, I don't, I've never encountered that before.
I don't understand the question.
Well, my question is that if the state turns around and says, okay, it's necessary, we got this project here.
Oh, would the state be able to take
And then
the bill
another
from
project comes
somebody
on
else?
17 and says, okay, now, you're gonna have to reimburse us for some of that money because now you're adding to a problem that we fixed a while ago.
No, I don't see how they would. There could be a law out there that I'm unaware of, but I don't know how they would.
Okay.
Which is probably why some of the projects have made it this far along.
Because they have done it.
Sure.
Oh, I agree.
And Gio, you said same thing.
So we have a motion and we have a second.
So in that case, you have a motion, and a second, anyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Wait, before you take the vote from your comment.
I'm sorry?
Can you,
I just had clarification, I'm sorry to bother you, just wanna understand. So we recognize that DOT says they have to fix the road, it has to be a left-hand turn.
Well, based on the warrant, there's a need for it, yes.
So will this be able to be built and activated before DOT puts that in? Is that what you're
Yes.
telling me?
Yes.
And we can't tie this application to like it has to be in the next 5 years, or there's no way to make sure DOT actually does it?
Not if this applicant's not wholly responsible for the construction of that, modification at the
Well, I'm not
intersection.
saying from the application, could the town board say,
I'm not sure the town board's gonna wanna pay for it.
not that in paper, but do they have any kind of squeeze over the DOT where they could say, you said this
Uh-huh.
needs to be done?
Good luck with that one.
So even though we recognize there's a problem, it
You
could just
do realize
wait.
we're a town of the DOT state. Yeah, no, they wouldn't be able to pressure them.
I see, okay, just wondering.
Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm just,
Okay, back to where we were.
I don't know why.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye. Against? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, I just add one thing just for the board and for the applicant's benefit. So Under your code, you're required to make a decision on application 62 days after you close a public hearing. I presume that the applicant will grant additional time, and not, if this board requires it.
We have your consent. Is there anything else at this point, Kelly?
I have one question. I
Diana.
unfortunately wasn't here last month, 2 weeks ago. You fixed the bike path off and foot, will that affect this turning range or anything that goes with it?
No, all they did was ask us to move it,
Shift
to
it 1
call
foot.
it out and move it 1 more foot into the property line.
Into the property?
Away from the right-of-way
So
edge.
I wanted to know, okay.
And that doesn't impact the berm.
I wanted to know, okay, it doesn't affect any of that, and it won't affect the turning lane or anything?
No, that doesn't affect it all.
So Joe, I think that's all we can do for you this evening, unless you have any questions for us.
I think we're good.
Well, enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Graham. We'll keep, Sean, I'll get you the deal, you know, the information you send to the traffic consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is American Reclaimed LLC, formerly known as Authentic Antique Lumber, 18-2-5. It's an application for a site plan and special permit approval for custom wood furniture fabrication business on 2.8 plus or minus acres along New York State Route 17A in an HC zone, AQ 3 corridor overlays. Brad, welcome.
Good evening, I'm Brad Cleverly from MJS Engineering. And the project has not changed since the last time I was in front of the board.
Ah, short and sweet, okay. Kelly,
Yes, so, do you wanna do secret first?
we could do that.
Okay, so, I prepared for you a draft part 2 of the EAF. I understand that some of you did not get my little markings, so I did resend it in case all of you did not get my little markings. But they should have come through this time. So the first, I'll just go through it briefly, on the FEAF, impact on land was yes, and all of the other responses were no. So the proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site was yes, and the remainder were no. Impact on geological features was no. Impacts on surface water was yes, with 2 potential small impacts of the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. And the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies.
Question,
Yes.
we're talking about, in terms of construction, we're building a 20 by 70 structure on top of an existing foundation, correct?
Yeah, we're rebuilding it after the fire.
And then the only other modifications on site is either removal of the trailers or?
Yeah, just moving the trailers, and the slab is there, but they're gonna come for like a day and they put the steel building up, and then it's,
Okay.
that's right.
So is that where we're concerned
So
about?
there was like a wetland on the side and the back turns out to be really steep, so if they end up moving the trailers, that's why.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Impact on groundwater was no, impact on flooding was no, impact on air was no, impact on plants and animals was no, impact on agricultural resources was no, impact on aesthetic resources was yes, with several potential small impacts. That the proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points seasonally or year-round, and the situation or activities in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, and there are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed projects between 0 and 5 miles. Impact on historic and archaeological resources was yes, with 1 potentially small impact. That the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory. Impact on open space and recreation was no. Impact on critical environmental areas was no. Impact on transportation was no. Energy was no. Noise, odor, and light was no. Human health was no. Consistency with community plans was no, which actually means yes. Let me take a drink, I'll get right on it.
Is that no me no or no me yes?
Some people haven't heard my spiel, like, when they hear the audience.
Any questions, Gio?
I have none.
Okay, Karen? Concerns?
Let's go.
Okay.
So you can adopt the part 2 as presented.
Can I have said motion?
I'll place a motion.
Diana, second by? Neil, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay.
So I also prepared for you a draft, negative declaration.
We're gonna have a public hearing first?
You don't
No,
need to.
We had, I thought this, this
Says
is a public hearing.
This is listed for public
Oh,
hearing.
did I
but
miss
you're
that?
not-
I'm
You're
sorry.
not required to do that. I mean, actually, in subdivisions, you're required to complete secret first. So,
Okay, I went forward, the resolution to approve, come after.
I'm not
Right, first
this
we
is
have to do the
negative
negative.
I got the
declaration.
neck deck, I got the neck deck, I got that one. Draft resolution was the one that's throwing me off.
And, well, you can't act on that draft resolution tonight anyway. You haven't gotten the GML report back. We tried, we reached out. Grace reached out again today. Today is Juneteenth. The county was closed, so despite, our best efforts, the GML hasn't come back and 30 days haven't passed. So we'll put them on for the next meeting, but you have a draft, you just can't act on it.
Can we talk about it?
You can talk about it, but we'll do the negative declaration. There is one phrase in there that I do have in bold italics under impact on aesthetic resources. And this was one phrase that you had in there, what the last time that this applicant was before you with the similar application. And I wasn't sure, based on your conversations at the last meeting, if you wanted that to continue. And it said that the planning board is requiring the applicant to keep outdoor storage in an orderly manner, which you agreed last time. And the bold italics was, and plant additional vegetation to screen the outdoor storage from public roads. So that's where the discussion kind of went back and forth last time, so I wasn't sure what you wanted. So I put it in bold italics for you to discuss. And then if you have any other questions.
The outdoor storage that was on the side in front, is that moving?
The,
That was moving, right?
what's immediately on the fence is moved, and so now it's all gonna be within the setbacks, and it's gonna be maintained in a neat and orderly fashion. And in many ways, that lumber, which is stored in a neat and orderly fashion, is like an advertisement
Right.
for this product. Just like car dealers have cars out front, we have lumber out front of this, it's stored in a neat and orderly fashion. It's gonna look just as good today as it does after the shed's constructed. So it's really best, as far as this goes, not to put any screening in front of like their product, just like the car dealers do on 17.
Where the shed is gonna be on
South.
South side.
on the 20-foot length facing out, parallel with the highway. How visible is that gonna be?
Nominal.
Given,
It's really gonna be nominally visible. It could be, because there's material stored in front,
okay.
really nominally.
Comments from the board regarding this issue as far as the need for additional plantings, screening?
I don't see the need for screening of that lumber that's there.
We've all driven past that.
We discussed it at the last one.
Good?
I'm good to go.
Okay, so then I'll strike that
Strike that.
language. Okay, so then with that removed, did anybody have any questions or revisions to the negative?
Anything at this end? Seamus, Diana?
Good.
You good? Good. Could I have a motion to accept the neg deck as modified?
So moved.
Seamus, second by? Diana, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Now we can open the public hearing. Do we have anyone from the public here for this application? Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll place a motion.
Diana, second by?
I'll second.
Seamus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, public hearing is open. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this application, again, state your name and your address and your comment or concern. Anyone from the public? Never mind. Comments from the board? Frank?
Yeah, just to clarify, so the front fence and the product that's on the fence, that's, the whole system is gonna be pushed back, the fence itself?
No, the fence, which is a pre-existing non-condition, is staying where it is, only because the product which is up against the fence is within the front yard setback. All the product will be removed to be within the front and side yard and rear yard setbacks.
Okay. And that will not interfere with any kind of access for first responders?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Any other comments from the board? Last chance for the public.
I'm sorry. Where do I put it?
You're putting it within the setbacks.
Okay, in the front?
In the front yard setback or within the side yard, it just has to be moved out of the setback in accordance with the resolution of approval.
Okay, what about the ones that I have on display?
Those would need to come out, these would need to come out of there because you're in the front yard setback. They could be moved back to within the front yard setback, but they can't be up against the front fence.
Okay, how far?
About 5 feet, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, can I weigh in on this for the board?
Please.
Yeah, so, the board's seen the plan, there are some areas and they're irregularly shaped, and, you know, if you stand on the lot, you wouldn't know where you are on it. My suggestion, so the applicant understands what he's agreeing to, would be for the applicant's surveyor, engineer to go out and identify, perhaps with some wood stakes, where that setback line is, so that the applicant understands what they need to remove from the setbacks. I'd hate to get a condition in there at this point, and the applicant can't live with it.
And the good news is you can't act on the
You
resolution
can't act on it
tonight.
tonight.
So you got 2 weeks to make sure that's okay.
So I'm not slowing everything down?
No.
No.
You're not slowing anything.
Okay.
Not at all.
No, it's a process.
So you guys, you don't like the slabs up there? They're not?
It doesn't mean.
That's good. So the answer I think we're telling is if you moved it back possibly
5
5 feet, you could lean it up there against some,
Something
and have
else.
it displayed there.
Okay.
Minor move.
Okay.
Could you put nicer looking stuff too, it looks.
I can put nicer ones. I finish them, I make them pretty before.
Well, I'm wondering, sometimes those railroad ties are like, why?
You want me to move those?
Well, put something prettier in the front to attract people's attention. The only female employees.
They're in the setback.
Make it look prettier.
So, you understand that aspect?
Yeah, we'll cover that.
Okay.
All right, that's easy, I can just take those down, because maybe I can just make my sign cooler.
See how far back it makes you move it.
Yeah, 5 feet is okay.
Other comments from the public? If not, can I have a motion to close the public hearing? Eric, second by
I'll second.
Diana, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Public hearing is closed. Thank you, public.
Come back in a month,
We'll see you
2 weeks.
If we get the GML, we could put them back in 2 weeks,
July 3rd?
July 3rd.
If they're gonna be here July 3rd.
I'll rearrange my personal life.
Your hot dog flipper.
Yeah, certainly won't be scheduled for the July 3rd meeting.
If for some reason it doesn't come in and the time still hasn't passed, then we'll let you know.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
But we have been calling, so we have to try and get it.
Thank you.
Sal, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Brad,
Brad.
take care.
You too.
Good luck, Sal.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Yeah. You said I could make comments on the resolution, you don't want to review it, because I won't be here.
Well, we did just ask for people to leave, so you can send me any comments that you have. Sticky. Thank you.
Yep. Next item on the agenda is Solar Liberty Energy Systems Incorporated, 18-1-1.3. We have an application for subdivision site plan and special permit for a solar energy system on 58.9 plus or minus acres along Milburn Road, Moonlight Trail and Storms Road in RU zone, AQ3 stream corridor water supply watershed and stream road corridor, scenic road corridor overlays. We're here this evening with a part 3.
One of them works, I think this one is the one that works. The one that works, you're gonna adjust the camera.
Still my good side. Well, I'll get started with you. So good evening, members of the board. Ari Goldberg from law firm of Barclay Damon for the applicant Solar Liberty and Solar Energy Partners. Nick Bombas from LaBelle Associates is here tonight, as well as John Hurley from Solar Energy Partners. So we were here last April 17th. The board recalls there was a pretty lengthy discussion about certain vantage points from which they would like to see provide glare analysis as well as visual simulations. What that resulted in is our May 29 submittal to this board. That included 4 exhibits. The first one was a response to remaining comments from Sean and his review of the project, as well as responses to some of the board comments. Much like the project before you, we also had a part 2 at one point during this long journey. We've sort of been discussing the remaining issues on that. I think if you review Exhibit 1, response to Sean's comments, some of the more technical comments were all responded to with additional notes made to the site plan. And then, of course, we're still discussing our impacts on site resources. Nick's going to present on the glare and the visual sims, but the key points that I wanted to point out on each of those, particularly first the glare, is the significant reduction in the amount of yellow glare once Labella ran the analysis and added, I think it's more than 50 observation points as part of the glare analysis. They also have a critical sort of review and narrative section explaining the impact of the amount of yellow glare, its minimal visibility in this location solely along Milburn Road, as opposed to any occupied home. And then on the visual simulations, I'm sure the board recalls that discussion I mentioned. What we ended up doing, I think in the exhibit that was given to you, was just take key 6 vantage points for simulation and present those to you. I do think that those speak for themselves.
Before we get into the vantage
Yeah.
points and here, just as far as the glare summary, on page 8 of 16 of the glare study, the first paragraph says Milburn had the potential for green glare, 131 hours per year. But elsewhere in the study, it says that there's also 55.9 hours of yellow, due to arrays 1A and 1C. It's not just green on Milburn, apparently.
Okay. I think why I'm jumping to that conclusion is, I think this is in maybe that final paragraph, it does say that green glare is not the traditional glare of concern. Green glare and yellow glare pose little to no human harm, unlike red glare. And previously, we had been focusing mostly on the yellow glare quantities.
You do point out the yellow glare on the others
Yeah.
where there's yellow, but,
Yeah.
but it is on the Milburn as well.
Correct, it's not 0, but it's far less than I think we presented, and then there's additional analysis. And then the last thing I want to point out is, it's really through the planning board's iterative review process that we increased the capacity of our team. We got better viz sims and better glare analysis as a result. And what that did was it dispatched some of the civil design guys to enhance the landscaping. So we added 2 additional planting areas. One is directly adjacent to Moonlight Trail. When we got new visual simulations, we noticed that the visibility was far greater than we had seen on our previous photos. And then there's another one in the southwest corner of the parcel adjacent to the farm
Can
operation.
you point those out on the?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you.
There we go, so zoom in for it.
Yeah, we'll have higher resolution images as we go through this.
Yeah.
But, so this is Moonlight Trail and.
Basically where photo 17 is,
Yeah.
there's additional plantings along that road. Moonlight Trail terminates at the farm field, there's an old broken down gate. And then the other one is, yeah, there's an additional planting area right there. So we noticed that farm operation terminates at Milburn Road, and then there are some dirt roads that lead up to that portion of the field, and we have the planting area there.
And in the planting areas, you're proposing what kind of vegetation?
Evergreen.
Evergreen?
And we did maintain the ratio we had discussed before, 1-to-1 replacement of native species, and then I think a slightly decreased ratio for
Or non-replacement?
Nick, you wanna go ahead and take it away?
Sure, so we put this image in the presentation here just to demonstrate the scope of the operations with regards to the visual analysis. Each one of these kind of yellow dots with the triangles are photos that were taken by our team from various vantage points as discussed the last time we were here before your board. In total, there's about 28, I believe, the last time I counted, photos, and as already mentioned, we took 6 of the kind of key points and modeled them. The model, the photos themselves are taken with a Canon EOS R20 camera that's fitted with a GPS device. So we're actually able to geolocate each one of our photographs in real space, put them into a 3D model, and then generate the simulations that way, basically marrying up the two-dimensional photo with the three-dimensional model. So these are the 6 key locations that we discussed. There's 2 here on Northgate, 2 on Milburn, 1 at the bottom of Moonlight Trail, and 1 at the west end of August Road.
Can I make a quick point about that one?
Yep.
Project's been around a while. We did at one point consider access from the northern portion of the property. The reason it's from August and not, storms right there is because it does become private road. So if the board, if we did have to go back and further demonstrate the storms road access, we would probably have to engage with the homeowners and make sure that's right. That's why it's August.
Thank you, Art. Yes, I forgot that nuance there. Yeah, when we did the site work, we did see the trespassing or private road signs, so we decided to stay out. Okay, so this is location number 6 from Northgate. This is near the intersection of Summit Drive, I want to say. So in each one of these simulations, we have the existing condition and the simulation. You'll see in each one of those simulations, we have these 3 cones that helps us to, within our field of view. The cones are spaced a set distance, and we measure the distance from the cones to where the camera's taken. So that helps us to locate the simulated 3-dimensional objects in our 2-dimensional photo. So from this vantage point here along Milburn Road, we actually drew this green line here to indicate roughly where the array would be from this view. And as you can see, it's obscured by the vegetation here. We went one step further and took an additional photo just a little east of where 6 was. We labeled this one as 6A. So we were able to find some minimal visibility of the array from Northgate. And this photo is taken from about half a mile away. Along Milburn Road, we would expect to see some of the panels because we are basically right up against the array itself here. But we added a simulation here with the vegetation, the proposed vegetation, to help to hide the panels.
The vegetation is what, 1 year, 5 years, 3 years?
This would be at planting height.
That's planting height.
This is planting height. This is day 1.
Okay.
So it's only gonna get better as we move through the years. also simulated a view from the west end of Milburn Road. Again, there's a small amount of visibility here, but you'll also see the proposed vegetation that we're putting in place to help kind of soften the view there.
Well, how did this picture being taken, included in the car?
No, we're out on the ground, because we need to know the height of the lens above the ground to help kind of orient everything. So we're all.
What is the height? Ground clearance.
Excellent question. I don't know precisely. Don't really put on here. But we're looking at the ground elevation and the distance to the site and everything to help kind of square it up. But I don't know the lens height off the top of my head.
Is this the approximate location of where the yellow glare is?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So we'll get to the glare shortly, but the yellow glare was here at the western end of Milburn Road.
What were those heavy black lines that you were showing on that?
So this is the proposed vegetation. It doesn't play well at this scale, but yes, there's vegetation here and along the southeast. Here's the vegetation that we had along Moonlight Trail, and actually let's do Moonlight Trail now.
What's the height of the plantings you assumed?
Area 1 and Area 2 on Milburn are proposed at 6 feet planting.
So this is from the end of Moonlight Trail. Again, as I noted, it terminates basically right at the edge of the farm. So we did expect there would be some visibility here. So we added some more vegetation, again, 6 foot planting height on day one, and evergreen vegetation. So we're looking at full year screening after a couple of years.
How far apart are the plantings?
I think it's still pretty open, whatever the traditional row spacing, I think the board would recommend, probably what to go with,
Just
or
as far
whether
as,
we do
yeah.
a stagger.
Stagger, or, a little bit of a stagger, not to have them all lined up in
Yeah.
a perfect row, but also so that they don't grow into each other and kind of lose part of the vegetation as
Yeah.
it's intertwined.
I think stagger makes the most sense here, because it does help with growth, and I think maybe that helps cut back the image a little bit.
And then the last simulation was from August Road on the north. Again, there's no visibility here, just like we saw with the first image from Northgate. So we simulated the location where the panels would be if there was no topography or vegetation obscuring. Now for the glare, there's a total of 60 individual observation points. These were taken from the various houses around the neighborhood. We also, the blue lines here are the routes that were modeled in the program. And so what that's actually doing is for every minute throughout the entire year, it's looking at what sort of glare potential there would be at each of those points. So, as we mentioned before, the only yellow glare that we're going to see regularly would be at the end of Milburn Road here. We tried to address that by the installation of or rather the planting of the trees around the corner here. But there is, as we saw from the sim, there's going to be a little bit of visibility there. So we will expect to see some yellow glare, but again, this is limited to the street itself. There's no yellow glare noted at observation points number 2 and number 3 here on the end of Milburn Road. We did oddly find the analysis actually has 7 minutes, throughout the entire year of yellow glare. It was either, 45 or 54. But as you can see, there's a significant amount of vegetation between the array and the residence itself. So we think that that's just a bit of a nuance in the way the model works. It's only looking at obstructions where we tell them there are obstructions. So our team actually, we put an obstruction around the perimeter of the site, basically at the limit of clearing. But if the glare would somehow miss that obstruction, then beyond that, it's just looking at, the observation points.
Now, when you say you put an obstruction there, what kind of an obstruction did you propose in your simulation?
It's actually, in the model, it's the existing vegetation to remain. Yeah, it's
The natural vegetation?
correct, yeah, the natural vegetation. The term obstruction is just what the program uses. So rather than trying to model the entire.
Everything in between.
Exactly.
As if it was barren.
Exactly, yeah. So, but in reality, we did get some photos over here. You can't see the site from there, and we have the existing vegetation here that we would expect would completely eliminate any experience of glare at points 54 and 45. So that's basically everything we had for you. You've had a chance to review everything. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Part 3.
Yes,
Is this an appropriate time to comment on that?
it absolutely is.
Just two comments or questions on that. Impacts on land. We're saying that there's, the proposed action will not use pesticides during construction or operation. What about herbicides?
Can agree to that. I don't think that's.
It's not in the wording, that's why I just
Yeah.
wanna.
I don't think that's traditionally used either. No sides.
No signs, okay. No signs.
Yeah, we could, I think as a commissioner approval, or if you needed in a plan set beforehand or any sort of maintenance plan that we already submitted, we could make sure it's in there.
And then the other question on item 15, impacts on noise, odor, and light. You mentioned as far as that we're driving the anchors that support the framework for the panels. What is the duration of time that we anticipate that this noise would be present, pounding these anchors into the ground?
I don't know the exact specifics of it. I guess I can offer, I can find the specifics. I guess my immediate response would be, when seeker talks about construction, it is always acknowledged that it's a temporary impact. So
Temporary is a very vague term.
No, I know, I'm just using the
You know
vague
that.
term that seeker uses, right? Yeah, I know vague terms. Yeah, no, it's just worth mentioning it is temporary. I think we've talked to about whatever the work hours are per town code, that's what we'll comply with, but if there's something more sensitive beyond that for specific phases of the construction.
Yeah, I was just thinking as far as the residents around the area, they're gonna be hearing this for 2 months, 3 weeks, 5 months, 2 years.
I don't think, yeah, I'll find out the information of how long
Okay,
the
good.
pile driving will be.
Just based on historically, what you,
Yeah.
any other projects you've worked on, how many piles can be driven in the course of a day or week? You know how many you require for the project.
I don't.
Thank you. Other comments from the board?
So, two things. One, you know that we haven't received the visual simulations, right?
I was not aware of that.
No.
We're happy to.
They weren't included in my electronic version, and when I reached out to the board on Friday, it seems like they didn't get it.
Your exhibit 3 is not the Sims.
This is the first time I've seen that.
Okay.
And two.
I didn't send it to you, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's just me.
And two is, the report, the LaBelle report is a 6-foot screen. Is there a meaningful improvement with taller trees. And I guess what I'm saying is, I think we'll all have different opinions about whether or not this is mitigated appropriately. If 8 feet does a better job than 6 feet, I mean, I would be interested if you've already done the analysis and seeing what all that means. But, if you haven't, I don't need to ask you to have work, but if it exists, that would be great.
Right, yeah, we'll have to revisit that.
All right, Nate.
Yes, sir.
I have a question with you on that very thing.
Come on up.
Okay, cool. John Hurley with Solar Community Partners. Just a great question. I was thinking the same thing, so I asked the team, we actually looked at 6, 8, and 10 feet, which turned into a conversation, it evolved to, well, the idea is we want them to grow. So the team, your team at Bella, they informed me just one thing was planting size and height it's important to think about that for long-term health. So the larger the tree is, the smaller the root ball, the harder it is to get established. So 6 feet is kind of strategic height, but it will be reduced at 8 and 10. It wasn't dramatic. It's already at 0 at 6 feet for all of the 60-some observation points, but that Milburn Road stretch will decrease over time too, as the trees grow. But that's why we chose 6 feet.
We have also committed to, I think, a look-back condition that other solar regs have been subject to. I think Lakestar had the exact same one where we have to submit a $5,000 landscaping bond, and after 1 year, the town goes out and checks, and if there's any trees that are not considered viable, either the applicant has to replace them, or if you contact the applicant is not responding, then you can pull that $5,000 bond that the applicant has already paid for before they get their building permit.
Yeah, and actually, I had another thought about that. I don't know if our look back is intended to just consider health or also consider effectiveness.
It was location as well, so that when they're planted out there and there's like a gap,
If you need more info.
yeah, and it's not meant to completely screen, it's meant to be if like Frank and Sean go out there and it's tree, woo, tree, and they realize, wow, we didn't realize when these went in, there's this massive gap. We think 2 trees there would be great and would infill that area. It's in their discretion based on that condition.
Yeah, I think your response implied that it was just a health look back, but I think that our intent is to have an effectiveness look back as well.
That's fine. If that word effectiveness ends up being there as well, or some sort of other standard, I think that's totally fine, in line with what John said as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My other comment has to do kind of with Jeremy's, on that look back, I would prefer that the applicant do it first, rather than throw it at the town. The applicant can easily do that 1 year later, and say, hey, we found 3 trees that are good, and then we can check on that otherwise.
You'd like to think that applicants would do that.
Some applicants will, and in all honesty.
This applicant will. It's the other applicants who
That's
will.
all the applicants say.
Right now, this applicant's making me feel good with some of these presentations. So I'm having hope on this one.
I have so much hope, Neil.
I know. And I've had that too, and I've been shut down a lot of times.
Do you have enough hope for all of us?
I don't know what to do with that trust.
But what I am saying is.
This is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, Neil.
They can look at first, and then we can go, that's not precluding us from going there, but.
It's not precluding you from going there, but
But they don't need to wait for us to say, hey, it's a dead tree.
Well, we have operations and maintenance that's gonna go out there, and that kind of duty can be baked into whoever is the operator.
Thank you.
or they can also know that you're going out in a certain time frame, and they could rush to do it first and be like, see, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So that would then be on them,
Yes.
without us having to tell them it's on them. Do you see where I'm going?
A question for you. We're not using herbicides. We're probably not using sheep. How are we maintaining the vegetation underneath the panels?
I think
What's our
it's-
intent?
Yeah, I think it's maybe semi-annual mowing.
Yeah, we prefer to use local business to handle the mowing.
Okay. Seamus?
How will we know how many trees they're gonna need?
It's is in our landscaping plan, which I hope you, that one you did get, that's exhibit 4. And I wanna say it's sheet, so that one's in there, it's C800, C502. It has the planting schedule and the quantities. So for example, areas 1 and 2, which are sort of at the bookends of Southern Quinn and Milburn, those, area 1 is getting 35 evergreens, and area 2 is proposed to get 27. Area 5, which is the new area of planting that we added immediately abutting Moonlight Trail, is slated to receive 46-foot eastern red cedars. And then area 4, which is all the way to the west there, is 24 trees, or 20 trees, excuse me. And then we also have that area 3, which sort of we're calling the Arboretum and Forest area. That's immediately west of OP 18 and south of Observation Point 23 in that little nook. That's getting some excess vegetation as well. And that's to ensure that the home that has access from Milburn Road doesn't see the array from their backyard.
I would too.
Diane?
Did I miss, I know it's evergreen, what kind of evergreen?
It's that eastern red cedar, which is, the botanical name is Juniperus virginiana. And that's just what's proposed. You know, if there's a better practice here, your deer don't like this plant
I
compared
was
to the
gonna
deer up
say, are
north,
they
you know.
deer resistant? I don't know, junipers are.
Sometimes they're all deer candy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all candy.
Depends on how hungry they are.
Yeah.
I'm a similar way.
Yeah, that's true.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just have 2 comments. One, I apologize to the applicant. I should have let them know that I thought I was the only one that didn't receive the visuals, so I apologize.
We should have sent it to you.
Well, when I realized that I had not received it, I was finishing up my report, so regardless. The other item is what the applicant touched on with you with the observation and the obstruction from the, there are a number of tree lines within the project the applicant is utilizing to obscure from surrounding. Yeah. So my recommendation to you would be to ask the applicant, I don't know if they're prepared to discuss this evening, how those obstructions were modeled, not how they're modeled, but how they were assessed to be modeled, for example, density and height, things of that nature. But also, if the board determines that those are acceptable, is there anything to put in place, like a conservation easement, prohibiting that from clearing in the future?
So are the ones on their property or the ones on the
Yes.
residential properties
I
that they're using as a screen?
I believe all of the screens they used are on their property.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So that's,
But this is a business that needs sunlight, and they like
Yep.
to trim trees when they need to, and you want to prohibit them from doing such.
I think that's something we're open to discussing. You know, if you've seen other solar arrays presented before you, traditionally the applicant developer is a lessee. They actually already own this property. It's already there, so there is that additional ability to enter into some sort of permanent conservation easement. I'm thinking about that middle portion between the front and the middle array. Do you mind zooming out on that? Oh, that's just the southern part. Yeah, I mean, there's there you go. Yeah, there's the vegetation running between the 2 arrays. This doesn't exactly show our property line, but some of those trees on the homes adjacent to Birdie and Moonlight Trail are ours. So yeah, I think we've strategically already developed a clearing plan to ensure that we have access to sunlight. So anything not touched, I think we're definitely open to conservation. Yeah.
It may be helpful for you if, when you consider that, is the applicant can give you a plan that shows you those obstruction model locations, shows you the clearing limits, and then shows you the property boundaries, so you can ensure that everything works out together.
do that
Is that in your comments?
I didn't provide any comments.
Okay.
until now,
Just doing it live. It's fine.
real time.
That's all I have.
You can,
We can, yeah, we've, the analysis does include the instructions, but I mean, to Sean's point, they're floating.
Yeah,
Like, they're not,
put 'em up.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Other comments from the board?
So where you are right now is this is the part 3 EAF. You've had discussions on it, you've requested you think that this needs a positive declaration, making a positive declaration, or authorizing the drafting of a negative declaration.
Jim?
I'm good with drafting a negative declaration.
Sure.
I'm not ready for that.
It's just drafting.
I understand, but
I was like, don't
I'm
figure
trying
it
to
out.
set the table, like,
I agree with Jim. Okay, Jim, what's your concerns?
I have a significant glare concern. I mean, the last report that this consultant did for a different client was 8 minutes of yellow glare. And I appreciate that it's been mitigated down, but I consider this amount of glare to be a safety issue. And it's not the same thing, but we have to see the renderings too.
Yeah, but, yeah, solve the glare problem.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's that.
It sounds like
Can we dig into that a little bit, because we're here, like, I don't, so, there is a conclusion drawn about the significant impact of green and yellow glare. The glare shown is only along Milburn, no, I don't know if it's helpful to maybe explain what that means along the route itself.
That's where all the houses are.
Right, well, so hold on, just that point, we did independently investigate the houses themselves. There is a difference between the houses and the road. Correct, yeah. So, we found that there was no glare at the houses at the end of Milburn, or no yellow glare, I should say. The only glare would potentially be experienced, along the route, and actually the analysis itself does include, little figures that show, where along the route specifically the glare would be experienced. And, you know, as long as we're putting together a figure kind of indicating where these obstructions are located as part of the model, we're happy to add the area, where the glare would be experienced to that, so that it's clear to the board, that it is confined to just the one section of the road. Yellow glare itself, I think I already mentioned this earlier, there's no concern over, human health with something like that. It's more of a nuisance than an actual hazard. This is, and this is also represented in the analysis. There's a point on the graph of the glare where you can see, staring at the unfiltered sun is way up here. The yellow glare that we're experiencing is way down at the bottom of this table. So the actual, like, energy that you'd be experiencing if you were to drive by that glare is like a very minimal amount.
we're not gonna burn the retina in our eyes, but how
Correct.
about cause a distraction as far as driving on the road?
Yeah, I guess that would be the one concern, yes, but it's a small amount of the road that this could actually be a hazard.
Not all year,
It's narrowing over the course of time, and I think too, I'd consider Milburn Road itself, so you've got 6 residences and a farm operation, maybe 7, and then a farm operation at the end. It's not a cross street to anything to the west there, it ends at the farm. And the time of day is also between 6 and 7 in the morning, like how many people are gonna be on the road at that early in the morning,
And it's,
You'll be
correct me if I'm
surprised.
wrong, it's 7 minutes a year?
No, it's, at that section of Milburn Road, it was.
It's an hour a day for like 2.5, 3 months out of the year.
Sorry, looking at my table here. The total annual yellow glare was about 56 hours the entire year, out of, 8,600 hours, in the year, something like that. So it's a very small percentage of the calendar, it's a very, narrow window.
Talking hour a week.
Yeah. 56 hours for the year, yeah, so a little more than an hour a week.
Well, yeah, but I mean, on page 53 of your report, it's an hour a day for all of April, half of March, and sort of mid-August to late September, kind of.
It's not distributed over the whole year.
Right.
It seldom is, Mr. Chairman.
Right. No, I'm saying, it's
Condensed.
within a few months.
I mean, you've asked us to sort of articulate what the concern is, and maybe if you put a 10-foot tree there, like, this disappears, I
Yeah.
don't know.
In that one spot.
But yeah, is it mitigated as well as it could be? Probably not, but that, you know.
What, can you describe to me anyhow, what, the yellow glare, what's that equivalent to? Flash?
I don't wanna say specifically, I'd have to do a little more research into, like that exact intensity.
But, yeah, like maybe somebody lumens or something, I just don't know what.
Sure.
If you describe it like generally, if I'm driving on Woodward Road at 6 to 7 a.m. on April 13th, what am I seeing?
You are super tired, you're hoping you got some coffee.
Right first, people come home.
Oh, if he's coming home.
Oh, well, I know. I'm good.
Yeah, so if you could give some kind of idea how much that is, you know, because there are certain lights we have out here by the golf driving range that are horrible at night. As far as shining your eyes for that blue flash.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
Please.
So as the board knows from reviewing a number of these studies, in the appendix, and Jim just referred to it, they give you a lot of data, right? They give you graphic representation of when glare is gonna occur, how long it's gonna occur, what time of day it's gonna occur. And they also give you an outline of the array and tell you where the glare is coming off of the array. So it's very specific, but you really have to dig deep in to get all this data. What I usually do with these applications, and I find helpful, and maybe the applicant do it to help the board, is I usually list out all the observation points, and I list out from this time to this time, this, you know, an average of this many a year. And would that be helpful for the board, something other than just the aggregate or sum of the total?
Well, this much per year is kind of what we have now. What Jeremy's looking at is the concentration in a finite amount of time. You know, whether it's an hour, a half hour, where it's 3 minutes a day, over the course of 365 days.
And is there a way to mitigate it with something like a tree?
Perhaps, you know, with the density of the height of the trees, or placement of the trees relative to the monitoring point.
What I'm trying to get at, is the applicant give you a lot of data points in terms of observation points, right? You probably could, with a little bit more information from the applicant, get to a point where you can focus in on the most important or the most impacted ones, and then take a more specific view at that point. But I don't think you can do that with the table that's in the study right now. They have the data, it's just summarizing it in a digestible manner for you, in my opinion.
I would ask for that to be done, as well as what the solution to mitigate.
Yeah, of course,
To be
yeah, I
provided
think
full
that,
on shot.
I think that if they were to prepare a table or, and they see that there's some area, I think, I would expect them to come back and say, hey, just like they did with the photo renderings, hey, we did additional data, or we did additional research, and we found that there were some impacts, and we're proposing these mitigations.
Eric, I think those are one and the same. So further investigation is gonna be, okay, it's this specific longitude, latitude that's kicking out the, you know, the 56 hours in April to May. Let's add another row of staggered 8-foot trees there and see what it's like. You know, Nick can put that obstruction.
We'll model that.
We'll model that obstruction, redefine a specific location, and we'll go from there. I guess the only thing that I'm asking is, you know, this has been a pretty long saga, for lack of a better word here, and it sounds like we're down to one specific issue after having many more. And I'm hoping that maybe in consideration of that, you could dispatch your attorney to prepare the neg deck, and just for consideration, so that once we do our final, we demonstrate to Mr. Zweig's point, that we have mitigated and that we have reduced the glare sufficiently, that we can then jump right into that neg deck. Or it could be ready, we just have to insert a new exhibit or the new number of yellow glare on the project.
I have nothing to say, I don't know if the board wants to change their mind or even consider it, but I give the applicant a lot of credit, he's trying hard.
We'll go down the line again, one more time, in light of what they're offering up as far as mitigation and as far as additional study. Are we at a point now where we could authorize neg deck, given the,
With the understanding that those parts would basically be blank.
Right.
I don't know how we'd be writing.
because they have to
Yeah.
be addressed.
A draft of a draft.
Yeah.
So,
in light, this is only a draft.
A draft.
In light of the fact that the applicant knows exactly our concern.
Which he does.
And they have the data to show us that their mitigation is sufficient. On top of the fact that Millburn is not a major thoroughfare, it's not a throughway. This is not 17M, right? We're talking about 56 hours a year. I get more glare than that on 84 doing 70 miles an hour. So
65, we don't wanna say.
In a 55 zone.
that's the attorney's. Take him out of the courtroom. I am fully confident that this applicant can demonstrate to us that this 56 hours of glare can be mitigated to a point that will make everyone on the board feel comfortable. I feel that we should draft a negative declaration.
Jeremy, in light of the information that you just heard,
I do not share Gio's confidence, but acknowledge that it's their escrow, and if they want our lawyer to work through their escrow, that's kind of their thing, but I still feel that it's premature.
again, I mean, even if a draft is prepared, we're not having a motion to adopt it or accept it until we are satisfied, regardless.
I understand.
No, that's fine, I don't wanna sway you, you know, you're entitled, that's why I'm asking.
The applicant's not going away, the draft has to be written eventually, so whether they burn through their escrow now or in.
I'm getting paid either way.
Exactly.
And under that logic, we could do a resolution also, but like.
Exactly.
It's not even Christmas.
I only have one
Keep
question.
going.
How much time will we save by doing that?
Well, it really depends. It may save them 2 weeks. The next step after that would be scheduling a joint public hearing and trying to get that with, do they need some?
Yeah.
Yeah, so trying to figure out when to get that with all three boards. So it would save them having an additional meeting.
I feel the same way, so we could have a draft of the draft.
Okay. And like I said, if it doesn't get adopted then, and you just want tweaks of language, you decide to schedule a public hearing because it's ready, then you could always wait and adopt it at that time, but that's fine. Okay, so can I have a motion to authorize the drafting of a negative declaration?
Would you like to make that, Jeremy?
I'll take that.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Okay, thank you,
Did you
everybody.
really make some? But I missed it. That is.
I just sent the exhibit 3 to you too. Please, I'm sorry, please show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Don't forget the burden of the documentation and proving it's still on you guys.
He's like, well, I may have said it, but it's on him.
Make sure we all get the letters too.
You're gonna deliver it to her.
And when he does it, he's gonna have a mirror reflecting himself.
Hey, guys. Just move it.
This one?
Stop. You don't see it. This one? Yeah, just move it to the right. You're blocking the camera.
Oh, twisted.
I gotta stand back here.
Camera that sees me, that's okay.
Next item on the agenda, 114 Hartley Road Battery Energy Storage Site. 12-1-2.3. We have an application for an amended site plan approval and special permit for Tier 2 battery energy storage system on 31.2 plus or minus acres along Hartley Road in the CO zone from AQ6, floodplain and pond and stream corridor and water supply and watershed, battery energy storage overlay districts.
Easy for you to say.
Not really. It's a lot of districts. And we're here tonight to discuss some revised plans. Eric. For the record, Eric is recusing himself.
You gotta stay, you can't go home. Sorry.
We start right on in, all right.
Eric?
Thank you for your time. I think you know my name by now. Travis Rosenkrantz from Creighton Manning, project manager. We also have Alec Ladd and then Terrence Nolan from Newleaf. We submitted updated plans, visual sims, and our intent is really just to go through a summary of the changes that were contained within updated site plans, give the board an opportunity to offer some questions for us to further clarify those changes, and for us to also establish next steps and procedures. We're also hoping to advance the part 2 of the EAF that was provided as a draft to us for review, so that's also something we'd like to discuss. I'm trying to do this and not block the camera. So really what we did provide with the updated site plan, I think the major update that we offered was some additional grading around the actual pads. What our intent was to convey anything that was coming onto the site, onto the pads, and convey them to a swale that we're improving and directing that stormwater to an existing catch basin, which then ultimately conveys to an existing stormwater management pond on site. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna end up blocking some of the cameras here, but I wanna convey what we're doing. So really, all the conveyance of stormwater comes down, hits a swale in between. The pads are going to be pitched, so they are going to this stormwater area. And the swale here is being modified to convey the stormwater to this existing catch basin, which then ultimately conveys to an existing on-site stormwater detention area. So that grading is a pretty significant improvement. One, it's above and beyond what's kind of required for the SWIP requirements. I know Sean is still diving into that technical review. But what that is doing is anything that's on site, anything that's hitting the battery storage is flowing to essentially 3 stormwater practices. That was the main improvement. Basically, there were some additional comments, visual sims that were addressed, and we did receive Sean's technical review. And Sean, I'd like to give you an update. We acknowledged that there was a misinterpretation for the open space impervious ratio coverage. There was some conflicting information that we had seen on the previous site plan, and that data was presented incorrect. What we do have is an updated plan.
Can I stop you just for a second?
Yes.
There's a little bit of inside baseball going on. I just want the board to
Correct.
make sure that, I just want to make sure the board is following. So your code has a requirement for 30% of the site must be green space. I think the applicant initially interpreted that as non-impervious area, right? And that's a little bit different, right? And maybe, so what we had suggested was that they put it on an aerial plan. The site's kind of fluid, if you will. There's a lot of things storage-wise, just to make sure that the green space is required stays as green space. That's where we're at?
That's where we're at. So this figure, I'm gonna be totally transparent, this figure was not provided in its existing form that you're seeing here to you today. I did wanna offer that and acknowledge Sean's comment that we did confirm the coverage, we are compliant. We'll keep it short and sweet. If you'd like to get into further details, I have copies here of that plan.
Which you're gonna submit electronically to the building department?
For distribution.
Correct, yeah. It'll be in our next submission.
Excellent.
In our next submission. On that note, I'm gonna leapfrog off that. We did confirm, with Frank, his interpretation of impervious surfaces, and an email was distributed to both Sean, and I believe Kelly may have been on that as well. It aligned with how we were interpreting impervious surfaces, and, there's really no update for that.
The important thing,
interpretation.
I'm sorry, the important thing for the applicant is that the impervious surface and green space are not really connected under the code, right? Almost consider green space like open space.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And again, I'm talking about something that you haven't seen, so I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, or you can pull the e-brake on and we can discuss it the next one, but really what we're seeing here is anything in blue is the wetlands, the water course, and the 100-year floodplain. So anything in red is the actual gravel impervious surface. There's a small update that needs to be done on this, that needs to be done subsequent to conversation with Frank. That is not significantly going to impact this data. We will still, summary, we're going to be compliant with the code.
Does anything in any way restrict TAM's use of the balance of the property in the calculations of green space and anything like that?
No, anything that is, let me think back to that. There are areas that are duplicate, that's in the 100-year flood plain, that is gravel surfaces. There's nothing that restricts development in the 100-year floodplain as far as gravel access. The floodplain restricts elevations, outlets, pads, operating equipment. So those areas are not double counted on this.
But areas that are considered green.
Mr. Chairman, I think I might be able to answer that. So when the applicant submits a plan and shows an area of green space, if the building inspector goes out there and the green space has been developed, that's a site plan violation.
But that's what I'm saying, that's all land owned by, all this green space, when I'm looking at this thing with the green checkerboards, that's all owned by TAM, not the utility that's being proposed, the battery storage.
I had that question as well. Does those two lots that are being created, are they also required to have the green space as well?
And the answer is?
Ask Kelly.
The answer is, we have to defer to Frank.
Frank?
However, we're not putting him on the spot. We're not putting him on the spot this evening. Frank will issue something in writing.
Okay.
A
Fair
formal
enough.
submission, so I can digest it, review the code,
Good.
and we'll tackle it.
And to preempt that, the lots B and C are also compliant with the impervious ratio coverage.
So we're not connecting those two
We're not connecting those, but just to make that clear, you'll see that on the next submission.
And so we'll await a letter, Alec, from you requesting that interpretation or determination from Frank.
Sure.
Thank you.
Correct. The other update is we did submit a subdivision plan and application to the zoning board. We attended a zoning board meeting on Tuesday. I'm looking for apartments down here, so, because I'm down here a lot. So, but we did attend them. We have a couple of comments and follow-up items with them that we're working through with the applicant and then also the landowner. So as far as an update to those comments, we don't have an official determination on how we're proceeding, but more importantly, we are proceeding through their procedures. We intend to resubmit beyond the July 15th and 17th.
Have we heard anything, or have you reached out to Orange and Rockland as far as the necessity for the 12 poles, as opposed to reducing any number of them and putting it underground?
We have, and they do not do pad mounted equipment. We have that in some sort of documentation. So the number of poles and the orientation and placement has not been confirmed yet, but we did get confirmation that they will be poles.
Now, some of the equipment, again, I'm a little naive on this, but some of the equipment is yours on the poles and some is utilities, correct?
Correct, there is a customer.
Right, so can you, on the customer side, reduce or eliminate poles?
My understanding is possibly yes, as to the one customer pole. Most,
Is there one on each?
one on each, yeah.
leg?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and I'll confirm this, that 5 of the poles, are all Orange and Rockland specifically related. So I believe there's a customer-owned meter pole. We may be able to patent on that. So I'll get you that
Something to
answer.
look into.
Yep.
Thank you. Other comments from the board?
I just have questions.
Go ahead.
The pads, you said are pitched in one direction. I thought originally the pads are just underneath each of these units, not one big pad.
Correct, there is, I should say, the actual orientation of the pad and the size is not confirmed yet. That is based upon the actual OEM that's chosen, but essentially anything that's within this, sorry, I'm blocking your camera, but anything that's within this red box is gravel. And there's also a pad mounted, the equipment is mounted on a concrete pad.
Thank you. Yeah. There was a tip, you wrote in there about you're gonna reclaim some of the gravel area to make it no longer impervious.
Correct.
Is just the removal of gravel making it no longer impervious, or are you gonna, somehow do something with the soil to make it work?
It would be the typical DEC, you'd have decompaction, scarification, yeah, and one of the comments that was presented by Sean in his review to assist the board with clarification of those areas. We're preparing a figure identifying those areas. It would be the redeveloped pavement, the areas that are totally new pavement, which are minimal, and the existing surfaces that are being removed.
The surfaces for the emergency services, where branches on either side of the panels, the pads rather, is that gravel or is that asphalt?
So
The extent of it?
So the extent of it, so anything that's white is existing asphalt. The hatching that you see all along here is gravel. There's one spot that we're adding entirely new gravel.
Gravel.
That is this 20-foot section up here. So that will go from grass or disturbed areas to an actual impervious surface.
That would be theoretically where an emergency vehicle would make their turn.
Correct.
Double back and leave.
Correct.
On the gravel.
On the gravel, yes. It'll be typical cross-section. Everything else is all existing gravel or pavement.
How are you gonna delineate the fire lanes that must be left open?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
I'll be totally honest with you, we're not
Right.
there yet. There's discussion with the landowner of how that will be.
Delineated.
That was the concern about maintaining the thorough marking to make sure that those thoroughfares were maintained.
That's to make sure that the fire lane remains open.
Right, I remember you mentioning that, yes.
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna do with signs, you're gonna do, I mean, if it was all asphalt, it'd be really easy to just say, all right, pave the, or
Right.
stripe it. The other thing, obviously, you have to have talk to Frank or whatever, but I think there has to be, some lanes that have to be more than 20 feet, I think have to be 26 foot in some cases so they can pass each other. Just make sure that all comply with the fire code, please.
Yeah, we did provide an updated plan
Okay.
that indicates that it's compliant with the fire code. That's in the SUP.
Just to clarify that comment you're making, just the practical effect of making sure that those thoroughfares will remain open, because we will have an enforceable right to make that happen.
But enforcement doesn't help me if the fire breaks out. I'm not gonna be able to
You
call
wanna
you
know
up
how
and
it's
say,
gonna be
fix
marked
it.
and kept, yep.
Yeah, it has to be maintained all the time, right?
Yep.
I'm a little bit concerned about how close the turnaround is to fire trucks or whatever. Because as of right now, the fire department certainly has, we have not been hearing anything about how we're gonna fight the fire, or how close the fire department should even go to there. And the fire department doesn't know that at this point either.
So, in response to a comment in TD review letter number 2, we provided a full turning radius with the largest apparatus that the town of Goshen has. That's the aerial truck ladder. We show that through the various turning movements, backing in, turning around, and also backing in and turning around here. And again, that's just on the 20-foot lane that we're showing. There's substantial larger areas that can be used for maneuvering in between these buildings. So, but that fire turning template was provided in the last submission.
Now, I've been to the site, so I'm aware of how much space there is now, but I'm looking for how much you're gonna be able to say belongs to you, or you have control over, so.
Well, anything identified in the, that'll be described in an easement, will be recorded, but your point about, the practical, making sure it remains that way is gonna be, I mean, there's have to be, it'll be a monitored site, but it'll also, will have to be signage, and we'll have to make sure it's clear.
It's gonna be tough, because you're going through some parking lots there, and people
Right.
park on both sides, and sometimes double park and everything else.
Yeah, I know, I was there today, I know exactly what you mean, I mean, it's an active site.
So and I realize this has nothing to do with site plan, but I'm still concerned about firefighting.
Well,
And
I think it's been referred to the fire department.
We spoke with the fire department last week.
You did?
Yeah, they went to ER.
Absolutely, they were here in the building.
Okay, but they didn't come before the planning board.
I
And so
know.
I know you're saying you're still concerned about firefighting, but it's not related to the site plan. So I'm
Well,
concerned
it
that
may
may
be.
be outside the planning board's jurisdiction.
It may be concerning to the site plan, because they were talking about possibly staging off-site, or staging further away than that.
The fire department.
Yes,
Perhaps they should write a letter and a report to the
they're
planning.
not gonna write a letter.
But, Neil, I think the only other thing is if they've given a presentation to your board, and your board needs to write a letter to this.
Then I think what you can do is you can watch it online, it's on YouTube.
Well,
Yes,
then-
we can watch it, but the applicant needs direction, I don't.
I'm
the
aware of that.
applicant themselves.
And all I'm saying, I
We're
think,
coordinating with the fire department.
It's on us to coordinate a meeting.
Yes.
I've offered it over the course, so we're looking at make it happen, it has to be on a Friday, and we're offering hopefully the next 3 Fridays, not including the 4th, to have a meeting with them and hopefully get their feedback directly. And if there's design changes connected to that, we'll be sure to implement those. But it sounds like there was a meeting that took place where there were comments.
yeah, they did, and you can watch it online, you really can.
Okay.
They sat there for, I'm gonna say, half hour, 45 minutes, something like that, having a discussion about it.
Okay.
Basically, they were unaware of what they could do or whatever, as far as fighting it.
Yes, there's still that needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking Purple K, they're talking, enough water to deluge the containers or whatever.
Neil,
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt, I thought you were finished. I was just gonna say, perhaps if you have open dialogue with the fire department, and they're not willing to submit a written report, perhaps they could come to the planning board joint public hearing with the town board and the ZBA, and then everybody gets the same information.
we can
including the
certainly
applicant.
ask the chief again.
Okay.
The other question is, some places also require deflagration. So you can have a wall that's gonna explode or something like that. If the hydrogen doesn't get exhausted from the unit, then you can direct the explosion in a direction, as opposed to just, hey, whichever way blows up that day.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? You can probably even do it with something mounted on the roof, whatever. But certainly, some of the places are doing that. One of the other suggestions they have was some kind of windsock, so if there's stuff coming out, at least when you get there, you can know what direction it's blowing, because my understanding is that this is not a black smoke, this is pretty much clear if it burns. I think, you may know more than I do.
Well, I'm not gonna answer, because
Okay.
I'm not the expert, but,
Okay, and I'm not either.
I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like there's a host of comments that are gonna come out of the fire safety.
And then the other thing is, when we talked about what's gonna go in the air if there is a fire, it does matter which kind of lithium-ion battery it is.
Yes.
There's multiple kinds, and so there are different chemicals in each one. So it'd be interesting to know what you're proposing, so we'd possibly know what kind of chemicals are gonna go in the air.
There are 2 deliverables that I know we need to submit, which is an emergency response plan and a hazard mitigation analysis, and I believe that latter report will cover what you're suggesting right there. So there is and in fact, we would like to have those conversations with the fire, we
Sure.
tend to have them in advance of the public hearing. Yeah, I'll be more proactive in getting that together.
Okay. There's also a plume that's gonna come out of this possibly, and how far that moves is, if there's an temperature inversion, how far, what might it blow? We know we have some information from another application as to the wind directions and the speeds that have been recorded in the area. And we have at least 2 populations that can't be evacuated within roughly a half mile. One's gonna be less than a half mile, the other one's a half mile. Neither one of them are gonna be able to be evacuated if that was an issue. And I'm not saying it is, I don't know any better. But I think this board needs to know a little bit about that, to know whether there's gonna be a problem with the psych center population or the jail population. Anybody else can be pretty much evacuated, and I don't know how that evacuation happens. Fire department doesn't do evacuations, and I'm not sure we have enough police to do any kind of evacuations on things. Then the other question is, how do you notify the people on the site? What's your intention to notify the people on site? If there's a fire and things are going in the air, are you gonna have some kind of sirens on site, or what are you gonna do?
Well, there'll be a battery monitoring system that's a 24/7, and then that triggers an alarm, and then we can set up a contact with their point of contact on site in case there's an issue.
I would think that we maybe have to do better than that, because
Yeah.
it almost sounds like, hey, if it's going up in the air, or if you starting to have some kind of issues with it, that rather than waiting for them to go back to them, and then somebody in the office trying to run around everybody in the yard.
From an evacuation point of view.
So the presentation that Paul Rogers gave is, these systems are monitored by SCADA.
Right.
It's all electronic data. If there's an internal malfunction within the battery cell,
Yeah.
that alarm is sent to the point of contact, the emails, within the hour. And that's whether there's a faulty battery cell, whether there's a leak, which is not likely. So there are other people besides on site that are notified and have yet to be determined. Those are within the actual.
I'm not sure 1 hour later is fast enough.
But that concern you're raising would be, as opposed to the hazard mitigation, it would be in the emergency response plan, which would be unique to this site. So you actually need more data from us in order to be
Yeah.
able to.
Sure, I
Which is
agree
what
with
you're saying, you'd like that data.
Sure, I think basically I have a lot of missing information, I think.
Understood, yep, and we need to provide that, and we will.
And that's linked, I mean, that would be to the OEM, which is in the next month or 2.
Yeah, we're gonna make that call on the battery. It's been a unpredictable environment to be making that decision in.
Sure, I can-
To say the least. We're vetting what we think will be the battery, and and then we'll be building the response plan off that, and the mitigation assessment off that.
So that'll be more concrete data as opposed to say likely, unlikely. That'll be
Yes.
official data,
Tied to
official
that.
reports tied to
your
that.
specific design.
Tied to that.
And then the last thing, obviously, is if there is a fire or whatever, what chemicals are gonna be released, and if you're gonna use chemical to put it out,
Water.
then you're gonna provide what kind of water tank here?
Yep. So the recommendation again will be in the response plan, and it'll be from ESRG, so I'm gonna defer to that. My understanding though is that you wanna be mindful of putting water on an electrical fire, and so these things are, segregated individual cabinets, and there's, but you're asking how it gets put out, and that'll have to be addressed.
And so I just heard no chemicals, yes, water, then I just heard no water.
So the response, at least my understanding is, do nothing. They let it burn because the studies are showing that it will not go from one battery compartment to the other battery compartment. So
Except
those
up in
battery-
Jefferson County, it did. In
I think
Jefferson
since
County,
you're getting mixed responses, I think this sort of thing needs to be answered in the emergency response plan, because I don't wanna get misinformation, unfortunately, from one of you and then the other one of you, and then the board
Good.
gets
And then
wrong
we're in
information.
what I'm just trying to say is that we need more
information
in any way.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
good.
all aspects of emergency
No,
response,
yes.
you guys plan all of that.
Good.
If you have any questions that are not related to emergency response plan?
God, I just thought I had to ask.
Nope, you said that was the last one.
I thought I had to get that involved. Okay, I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Diana? Chicken. Diana?
Is this gonna infringe at all on Cam's ability to drive around the site? Like, is the parking lot shared at all, parking spots infringed, any of that?
His access, or the access for the site will not be restricted.
Can I add a caveat? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The caveat is the fire lanes that we were discussing
Correct.
before, right?
And what happens if somebody parks it?
Yeah, correct, and the applicant is still discussing that with the site owner right now. So, but yes, there will be some restrictions on the use of the owner's site.
What's gonna happen is that the landowner is going to grant to us an easement, which is gonna specify that they're not to obstruct that. And then we'll indicate that signs will be placed in certain places to confirm that that's to remain open. And then it becomes an enforcement issue.
You start calling it a fire lane, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
keep other vehicles.
fire lane, no parking, no storage, no, on this one, no primary construction.
Use yellow gravel.
We have painted gravel.
I will say, that site is very active, so they are, there's vehicles that need to be moving freely throughout the site.
Yes.
I got one item for you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm here.
All right, so, at the last meeting, you guys talked about the capacity of the system, right, and plans before you, show future to augment the proposed.
Was that in case they get newer, more improved batteries?
Well, you talked less about, the throughput of the system, if you will, and degradation of these batteries over time. I think it needs to be clear for this board to understand that the applicant intends for this site plan approval to allow them to put those in. So are you approving that now, and then when the applicant makes a decision, they're gonna add them? Or they need to come back, or whatever?
Well, the question I have is the augmentation, because I saw the note on the plans. Is it replacing units and cells inside the boxes to augment as you have decay? Or are we adding an additional pad with more equipment to supplement what's being proposed? And are we going over the 5 on each?
I'll step back to your last question. We're not going over 5,
Okay,
so it'll still be the 5 megawatt
right.
capacity. The site plan is showing the potential area needed for future augmentation. So it would include, there's 4 boxes shown on each site to the northern part. It's a little
Right.
small to see on this.
They're like mirror images of each other, the two.
Correct,
fields.
they're shown as the future augmentation to keep the operating capacity due to the degradation of the battery. I can't speak on whether it's a pull and replace or if it's an actual pad. I'm assuming since we're showing the actual
It's a
pad
it's a
in
different
itself,
footprint.
it may be depending on how many batteries need to be replaced and if it's another actual rack. And that will likely be determined by, correct me if I'm wrong, will be determined by the OEM.
Once we, yes, we'll have that, chosen, I hope, in the next
And the
month.
inverters, all that stuff stays the same, it's just the.
Yes, there'll be an additional, and you wanna have that ability, to keep the battery at capacity, as there's degradation. There was one other update, which I was just gonna offer, which is that we did receive our study back from Orange and Rockland, which is this so-called Caesar study, which confirms that we can move forward at an expense, the cost. We're still nailing down the exact cost because a certain percentage of it is cost shareable, but we do get a number from them that we have to pay, and that number is something we can afford with the project.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, it came up in an earlier conversation we had outside of this meeting. Why isn't Orange and Rockland building their own battery storage?
Well, they have, it's a good question. I don't know the exact reason why they don't, but I do know that they run RFP, process like at different places, so they can get bids from the private sector for that purpose.
But by doing that, they're constantly paying you some sort of, at least on the agreement, a lease or whatever, for taking that storage capacity and sending it back into the grid.
Right.
As opposed to them owning across the board and not,
Cheaper to buy land.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I'm not sure they can put a battery on this existing parcel, as far as I understand, that they own. I don't know the restrictions on it. My understanding is they can't expand it, but, in this case, you know, my only information is that when they need a battery at a substation, they go through an RFP process. So I don't know, I'm not sure why they're not doing it.
Yeah, I was just wondering with the substation
Yeah.
being right
And they may
there.
very well build them in some places. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Kelly?
So I prepared for you a draft part 2, if you'd like to go over that. This is based on the plans that they submitted. So impact on land was yes, with one proposed small impact, and that was the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. Number 2, impact on geological features was no. Number 3, impacts on surface water was yes, with 3 potential small impacts. The proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or on the bed or banks of any other water body. The proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. And the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. Impact on groundwater was yes, with 2 proposed potential small impacts. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. And H was other.
In this case, it's just the abandonment of the well and relocation, correct?
Yeah. H, I tried to put together based on the board's comments from the last meeting, and that was other impacts, potentials for the batteries to leak, and the level of containment needed to protect against that getting into the aquifer. 5, impact on flooding was no, impacts on air was no, impacts on plants and animals was yes. E2O, I don't know why I put it as O. It really should be, it should be B, actually. The proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. It should be B, not A. And then apparently I just forgot to put in no's on E through J. Those just didn't care about that. 8, impact on agricultural resources was no. 9, impact on aesthetic resources was yes, with a potential small impact for proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource.
That would be the heritage trail.
Would be the heritage trail. 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources was yes, with a potential small impact. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Historic Register of Historical Places, where there's been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation or Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places. Impact on open space and recreation was no. Impact on critical environmental areas was no. Impact on transportation was no. Impact on energy was no. Impact on noise, odor, and light was yes, with a potential small impact that the proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. Temporary during construction. Impact on human health was no. Consistency with community plans was yes, which means no, with 2 potential small impacts. Actually, that should be 1 potential small, 1 moderate to large. So the potential small is the proposed actions, land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. And C, I have marked as small, but it actually should be potentially moderate to large, and that is that the proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations, and that's because they need variances. So it usually goes in that category.
So can you go back to A, Kevin?
Yes.
What would be the land use components that are different or in sharp contrast to? Where did you go back to?
A. So the way I looked at it was that it's,
I mean, you have
Yeah, I just didn't think that it's your first battery energy storage, and nobody really seems to know what it was gonna look like and how you were gonna see it. It's up to you guys. That's why I said it was small, so you just might wanna see visual renderings.
I think
and
it's
just
small, I mean, when you look at it,
We have
we've got all those buildings on the property, you know, this seems.
Kelly, along with that line, number 8, number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. Isn't that impacting the trail in that area at all? By site?
Impact on critical environmental areas, Goshen doesn't have any critical environmental areas. They're specifically, you have to register them with the DEC.
Really?
Yeah, so that's why it's always no.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a specific legal phrase. But relating your question back to the aesthetic, wait, I just scrolled too far. Hold on. I scrolled too far. In sharp contrast, it's up to you guys. I didn't know how you would consider it because you hadn't really seen it before.
I don't think it's in sharp contrast, again, looking at that particular property, even just within the property, you look at Tony's buildings.
Okay.
You know, cause this thing's what, the maximum of 15 feet high, is it?
Yes, max.
Yeah, and the buildings there are taller than that with the peaks and everything, and this is behind that.
And we do have other battery storage facilities that are part of the solar farms that we have.
You have one for the solar farms, but you don't really have one that's just batteries, so.
Yeah, it doesn't sit by itself, it's kind of.
Arrow deleted.
Arrow's gone, easy.
And then consistency with community characters, no, which actually means yes. You were very convincing. I don't take much convincing. These are just suggestions, so.
Are we,
You
in
should check
agreement
with
with
Sean
those?
next time.
Sounds accurate.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I have some concern about the possibility of a health issue. And I don't know that it is, I just, before I would say there's no health issue, I think we need more information.
I think, Neil, what you could do is you could then change the part 2 and then provide the information into the part 3. I don't think you're gonna, you don't want usually to get information and then have that dictate the part 2. So, but I can tell you that for the most part, we utilize when we prepare these, and Kelly primarily prepares them and I review them.
So he said
We-
that
we
little
use the-
arrow was okay.
We use the part 1, yes, so, but if there's a concern, then that's the way I would recommend going about it.
I mean, if you wanted to say potentially there's an impact on human health, you could check yes, but looking at the rest of the sub-questions, I think at this point they'd all be no, so they would just have to answer that main
That's what rise to
question.
the threshold.
And then going back to really the workbook and the DEC's guidelines on how to answer this impact on human health. You and I have been over this, we just went over this like a couple months ago on IWS. They can look at that and they can see what potential impacts that you were raising earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
And it may be addressed in their response thing. I don't know.
I would expect it to be.
But if the board wants, I can shift that little X over and fill in the others as little X's in no, but they would have to answer, because then it would be, the proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new, it would be new, or existing sources of contaminants. So it would be from exposure to new sources of contaminants, and you just don't know what those are. And then they may be able to say there aren't any, or there are. But this would be the time to ask them for that information.
I mean, because this is one of the few things where, if there's a fire, and again, it's pretty much confined to if there's a fire. If there's a fire, it's gonna generate hydrogen, in which case, if it doesn't get released from those containers, it's gonna blow up. I think that's a health issue.
I don't think the applicant has an objection, so if the board wants to add it, I'm bringing an objection.
I mean, that's gonna be addressed in our emergency response plan and all of the other documents to follow, so I can understand your perspective, but I'm not the expert, so I don't wanna try to be that.
Let me ask the board, do you want me to shift the X to the yes?
We could shift it and then put X's down, all the others But at this point, we can't say that it's, yeah.
I guess I would make one point,
Potential.
which is, to the extent that anything can go on fire, that becomes an evaluation as to whether this is inherently more risky than something
I
else,
think
like,
it-
for example, the neighboring substation or the neighboring buildings.
But the answer, I think, on this, from what I'm hearing from fire departments and from the people, the hazmat people at the county training center, is that this fire, if this catches fire, it's a unique fire. Lithium-ion batteries are kind of unique in the way they burn, in kind of what they release, the intensity of that. So it's not like you have a house on fire, you have something entirely different, which is why people are still trying to figure out, do we try to treat it with chemicals, do we try to treat it with water? And so there really is an unknown, so it's not quite the same as the other fires.
And since we don't have any others in town, I think it's a bit new, so I'm moving the X. So if the board is okay with that, and the other changes tonight, then what you can do is you can make a motion to approve the FEAF as part 2 as modified this evening.
Could we have that motion, Neil?
Yes, thank you.
Second by
I'll second.
Giovanni, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Okay.
Gentlemen, do you know, is there internal fire suppression in these containers?
Yes,
Okay, and the battery monitoring is constant?
yes.
So if there's a battery alarm, if there's one that is in jeopardy of overheating, there's one battery, one cell in one battery, it's immediate.
Yes, in fact, that's required, it's called battery monitoring
The
system.
battery monitoring system will
Yes.
disconnect that battery.
So I'll get you the answer to that question.
I know the answer,
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask the question, but I.
Yep.
So I'm very familiar with these battery systems. I'm just familiar with them, so I'm confident that the likelihood of finding is very, very low. I understand Neil's concern, it is a very serious concern. But the likelihood is low.
You know, following the fires that we all know about, including the one in Warwick, there are changes that are going to be adopted into the fire code, and in fact, the NYSERDA incentives that have been released already require those changes to be incorporated in these designs, even though they haven't been added to the fire code yet. So these types of things we've been talking about, like video surveillance and a battery monitoring system, and a host of other ones are all going to be absolutely required for this project to even make financial sense, in addition to ultimately required by the fire code. So those have been, I guess my point is, there's been a number of changes that are taking place since some of the concerns that have been raised, but I think we have the opportunity to demonstrate that, so we'll do that.
That is a perfect argument.
But it just has nothing, it has nothing to do with this part of it. It has to do with, the well's gonna be abandoned, so that should probably be shown on the rest of the site, where that well's gonna be put.
Yeah, they have to go through the health
Yeah,
department
go
first.
for the department.
We're just not there yet because we're
Getting into-
discussing that with the landlord, so
Good.
it'll
I
go.
mean, our request is that would be a condition of
No.
moving.
No, I don't
No.
think. That's what I
That the
do.
well would have to be abandoned prior to site plan approval.
I would not make that recommendation to the board.
That be abandoned,
No, that they make that a condition.
that part. I think the location of the new well has to
It
be.
should be on the plan before you.
Right.
I see. So, the decommissioning though of the current well, does it need to be
I would say
decommissioned?
before you get a building permit would be my
Before a
recommendation to the
building
board,
permit.
but I really think this is a very premature discussion.
Understand. Okay. I didn't quite understand the dynamic there, so I do now. Thank you.
You did. My next track was, so that's all you can do tonight. So you guys get to go home, long drive, and put together your part 3. And I'll send you an updated part 2 after tonight's discussion.
Thank you.
I just want to remind the board, this is a subdivision application, you have to finish the secret before you go to public hearing.
Which, when we get to that stage, we'll try and make it a joint.
Yep. What's the ZBA?
CBA and town.
Town
this is
board.
Town board.
Yeah.
Three boards.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Thank you.
Good luck with the apartment search.
As I was driving, maybe I should have said
That's a scary thought.
that was sitting in this chair twice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Kelly, at least some of the ZBA thinks they have a public hearing. We really just want to make sure we're coordinated somewhat.
Well, you know what? They can hold one, and then they can hold one.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yes, let me just open that. My eyes are getting blurry. It might sound weird. So next on your agenda is the short-term rental law. You requested that I send you a draft report, based on your conversations at the last meeting.
I do.
So I provided you with a draft report and a red line version, just kind of summarizing or putting in some of the changes and some of the comments, or all of the changes that I heard the board make, and comments that the board made, and a letter saying, here's a proposed red line version containing comments and revisions. Does the board have any comments, revisions? I do some post-it notes. Anything that you would like to comment on this, in terms of what I've provided to you?
Yes. Okay. I guess I'll start because I have stickies.
Stickies are a good place.
Okay. On, I guess it's section 4, amendment D1.
Yes.
We're saying violation of this chapter is an offense punishable by a fine not exceeding $350 or imprisonment for a period not to exceed 15 days or both. And I'm thinking perhaps it just seems a little clearer, less words. Wherever it says or imprisonment, just and or, I get rid of the or both.
It's a way you write it when you're talking about penalties for criminal offenses.
I'm not a lawyer.
This would be proper.
This would be proper, okay. I'll yield to the lawyer, okay.
Sorry.
Come on, Mr. Chairman, you're an engineer.
I thought you were gonna say what happened to the heading for D.
Well,
I don't know where the heading for D
that's why I said
is.
less words. You know, we get right to the point.
Not
Okay.
where's the heading for D? I don't know where the heading for D
Okay,
is.
how about on H?
I'll put in where's the heading.
Let's go to H. I'm not gonna talk about my and or again, of course, but the first line, notwithstanding the other provisions of this chapter, a violation of 97, subsection 9710, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking maybe I should say a party in violation.
Notwithstanding is a big word.
Should be a violation it's not shall be guilty. It should be shall constitute a violation.
Yeah, but since you don't know, a violation of this constitutes a violation, that's what I was thinking, maybe we should say something, party or something in violation constitutes. No?
Big gathering.
Anybody know what the highlighting means? Violation of sections shall be punishable a violation of that section shall be punishable by a fine not exceeding daily limit.
Okay. So we're not a violation of a violation. Okay. Then we only have two other items. On I-1,
Yes.
the presence of any of the following, because we've already changed it from ands and ands and ands to orders. So that's that one. And then lastly, on 9784, definition short-term rental, we're saying of not more than 31 consecutive days in a 12-month period. Why do we even need that line in a 12-month period? It's just 31 consecutive days.
I don't disagree, that actually was a suggestion of Phil,
Yeah.
so.
Where's that making sense?
Lawyers. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't
It doesn't-
think,
it doesn't- it doesn't- it
I
doesn't
don't think
end.
that it does.
31 consecutive days, doesn't matter where it is. It could be the end of November into December, it could be December into January. It's 31 consecutive days.
I agree.
It's more than a month. That's,
period, like you
that's
said,
what-
it could be, well, February.
yeah, because it doesn't matter. It's not a calendar month, it's a cycle.
I think it got looked at.
So we,
You felt that was
Yeah.
important.
well, I don't think it adds anything, and if anything, it might detract from what the purpose of the definition is, so I took that.
That's good enough. Other comments from anyone else on the board?
Just in that same, your note, about whether it applies to month-to-month leases, like,
That was a comment from Phil as well.
but it specifically excludes month-to-month tenancies at the very end of that.
I wasn't clear on his comment, so I put it in on the summary.
Should we call him?
I think it would be fine if we just took out everything after the word effective, because if it's, I don't know many people who have a lease that you either have a month-to-month tenancy, you don't execute a new lease every single month, you just don't do that. So to me, that doesn't make sense, but I could be misreading it and it could be late, but I think it makes more sense to end that question after the
Which
word.
statement are we looking at?
My comment on the right, the very last one. I think it makes most sense to
Oh, your
end
comment.
that after the word effective.
That would solve for that problem, I'm sure.
That can make that motion. No, I just wanted to capture everything to get it to you guys to have these discussions. And if I didn't understand it, put it in and you guys could talk it out. 'Cause I may not understand what you want me to put in.
Any other changes? Diana, James?
I will be making changes that I just realized that are really annoying me, is that, I'm sorry, but it should be like 97-10, not .10, stuff like that.
Let's keep this up.
Okay. I
Sounds like she's still- more scope than that. Sounds like she's-
But if that's acceptable, then the board can make a motion to.
Have a good night. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Have a good night. The board can make a motion to accept the report as modified this evening and authorize me to send it to the supervisor.
Oh, that was another question I had.
Oh,
The supervisor letter.
I don't know, mess that up. That's
Yeah, you
supposed to
put
be-
these road village hall instead of town hall at the top.
Oh my god. I
Did you see that?
know, that's pretty bad. That's what I do when I am hopping between different things.
Oh, you got the right address then.
Yeah, that makes no sense. I put Town of Goshen Town Board at Village Hall in the Town of Goshen. I mean, it would have been like your process. No, it would have been here.
Could I have a motion then to send this revised, modified local law 13, 2024 to the town board?
I'll place them on.
Diana, second by.
I'll second it.
Neil? Okay, we'll give it to Gio. Easy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Which now brings us to you, Sean.
So for your July 3rd meeting, I have definitely two items on there, possibly a third. First one is gonna be Antique Lumber, who's here this evening for the resolution. Second one, new application, Eames Garden. And then possibly a third is Quarry Stone. I say possibly because I received materials, but they were sandwiched between two applications, so I was unsure if I was supposed to receive those, so I have a call in grace.
What is Quarry Stone?
Quarry Stone is a change of use. I
Quarry Road?
don't know enough to tell you that.
Okay.
I haven't, I got it, I don't know if it was intended for me, or if it just got clipped onto another application inadvertently.
What was the second one?
Gibbs
Second one's
Garden.
Gibbs Garden.
We haven't seen that one in a few years.
GIMS.
Where
Gibbs.
is that?
I think it's on Pulaski, but I'm not sure.
It's in this warehouse.
You should have received the hard copy tonight, it's on Pulaski Highway, 10.66 acres.
Good.
Yep.
What's the address?
Not given.
I don't get hard copies anymore, so.
Oh, okay.
It was before you several years ago, but you haven't seen it in a while. I don't know.
I think it's on a corner of Pulaski and Wisniewski.
Easy for you to say.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Not have a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make it.
Neil, second by. Eric, all in favor, say aye.